Everybody, Scott here. I know it's been a while since I've been online, but things have been really busy. Things have been exciting here at the agency. But I did want to take some time to talk about some developmental editing, and that's how you can look at your stories and hopefully make them better. And I think that this is an area where a lot of people really screw up because you'll notice on my little subpoint right here that it says that this is more than just simply the grammar and the spelling. And I think that that's a problem that a lot of people have. They just don't know what to look for and how to make those stories better. Now, sometimes a lot of these problems are going to come down to really not even knowing what your story is about. So that'll be a point that we're going to talk about a little bit later. Again, I'm bringing this up because I'm in the middle of teaching a class on developmental editing, and I had a lot of my students asking these similar questions. So we want to kind of cover each of those points. So, what is developmental editing? Now, first of all, this is a real simple definition, but it's a focus on the story and not the wording of it. We're really trying to shape the story and build the story and craft the story to something that's not just a nice read. We want to make a story that is really the best thing possible. This is also a global examination of your story. You're not just editing a single scene, which is where a lot of people have this as a problem. And we're going to talk about that one here shortly. But it's looking at the entire big picture of your story so that everything is working together. I mean, at some level, think of this as like a developmental editing is preparing like that Thanksgiving dinner, right? That we're not just focusing on the turkey. We want to make sure that the turkey, the dressing, the green bean casserole, the jello with stuff in it, whatever you might have, all of it works together in a unified fashion. And if you've got somebody, for example, bringing like a wine in, that's great. But then somebody else has also brought in some artichokes. We already know if you're familiar with like wine and things, wine and artichokes, those two flavors tend to clash with each other. So you don't want to make sure that even though each of those elements might be great, you want to make sure everything again works as a package, which really goes down to that third point. It's a cohesive story. A lot of times I'll read stories where the writing is great, but it's like they're going this direction and this direction and this direction. It clearly tells me that they didn't do any developmental editing. And that's that part at the bottom, ensuring that all the parts work with the whole. Again, common mistakes for most people. So again, here these are the common mistakes. You're focusing on details that don't improve the story. I hear time and time again by authors, and the funny part is that it often tends to be authors who are writing literary fiction. Now, I'm using that in a real harsh sense right there, but I want you to understand it that these are the people who are writing their novel. A lot of times, don't take it the wrong way, they're professors who have been working on this novel for several years now. And the problem is that they spend all of their time focusing, you'll notice on that bottom next point right here, focusing on sentence wording. They're more concerned with finding the right phrase that says just what I'm looking for. That's not going to make the story better. It's going to make one really killer sentence, and you're going to go, I love that sentence, but it's not going to do anything, right? So they're focusing on details that really don't make the story any better. They're just fixing sentences, they're fixing wording. I hear this with a lot of poets as well. Poets who will sit there and just scrutinize a single stanza trying to shape. I don't like that word. I think I'll use this word. I think this word's got some more meaning to it. And in the end, it didn't change the story at all. It made a pretty sentence, and that's about it. And that goes into that third point, right? You're not thinking about that big picture. Those you can make all those individual changes, but again, does it improve your story? We also get down to you don't have a clear vision or a theme a clear vision of your theme or your purpose of the story. Why are you writing this? What is your ultimate goal? Do you even know where this is going to? Now, this is where I get to throw the pantsters under the bus right here, right? The difference between plotters and pantsters. Plotters know where that story is going. They have plotted the story out. They might not know it from chapter by chapter, but they know the story's going to go from here to here to here to here. They've got 4 major points. They get that. The pantsters are the people who sit down and they're just waiting for the muse to talk to them. And then they just write. The problem is that writing goes left, then it goes right, then it goes backwards, then it goes forwards because it's just a train of thought, and that's not helping them. So if you don't really understand where the story's going to, that developmental editing is not going to help you at all. And the final part is this really comes down to those of you who are editing for your friends, if you're part of a critique group. And we talk about this all the time with editing, that people, especially writers, will say, I really want you to tell me the truth. What do you think about the story? Except the problem is people really don't want to know the truth. They really have no desire to hear that. So we often make our phrases and we couch those phrases in nice, cushiony, puffy, nice, happy words, basically. And we don't really tell them the truth. So the deal is, look, you have to be willing to tell them this whole thing. I mean, I like the scene, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the story. Ditch the whole chapter. The chapter's well written. It has nothing to do with the story. Make it go away. And a lot of people are going to go, I can't tell them that. That's a lot of work they put into it. Yeah, it probably is. But our ultimate goal is making that big story better. So that's our ultimate goal. So you got to be willing to do that. And as an author, you have to have tough skin to be able to listen to those comments. So how do we going to do this? We've got a couple slides on the how to do things. And we're going to think, first of all, again, thinking globally. So when you're looking at that page on your computer screen or on your e-reader, how does that page work? How does that scene that you're working on fit with everything that happened before and happened after? And that is a big issue that we really have in this digital age, because we look at that computer screen and we see that computer screen, but we forget that there's 5 chapters above this and there's 5 chapters below this or whatever. We forget that because we're only looking with blinders on that single screen. So every time you make a change, you have to ask yourself, how does this connect with everything else? Okay, think about how that change is going to potentially change the character of the plot. You might tweak that little thing and that works great, but as soon as you tweak that, look at that third point, it's going to have a domino effect. In other words, I make that little change right there and that sounds great and that looks good, but I forget that that beginning, the middle, and all of those others, suddenly now I'm going to have to change some other things. So again, goes back to have that end goal in mind. Let me give you an example on this one right here. And my mother-in-law was a great example of this. I always hated when she would suddenly get in a mindset to do some decorating around her house. And she's a person who would come in and she'd go, okay, I want to change the sofa. So she finds a new sofa online or something like that, and she'd find a new sofa and she'd put the sofa in because she really liked the sofa, but she didn't think globally. So she'd put that sofa in and then she'd go, oh man, maybe the sofa needs to go to here, so we'd have to rearrange the room. And then she'd realize, nope, you know something, the problem is I like the sofa, but the sofa doesn't fit with the walls. So then we'd have to paint the walls. But the problem is her Rambler, which was kind of like those late 70s, early 80s Ramblers that sort of connect to everything. She didn't recognize that as soon as you painted that room, now there was a connection to the next room. So then all of a sudden you'd have to change the next room. So she'd go into the next room and we'd paint the next room, but now she'd realize that the painting didn't match the furniture. So she changed the furniture, and now the furniture, remember that original sofa? The original sofa didn't work anymore. So we were constantly, I mean, it was nightmarish when she would call and say, hey, I need your help. It would be like, oh no, here we go again. I mean, we would change paint and we changed carpeting. I think she changed carpeting like 2 or 3 times, and painting. And it was like, oh my goodness, it was awful because it was that themed connection through everything. So always think about that concept. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Now, let's talk about organization. When you are editing, I want you to really kind of take this one idea at a time. So, really stop and think as you're reading the story, what seems to be, I'm going to come down here, the underlying problem. What is the underlying problem? What do you feel is not working right? Figure that piece out and then go through and say, okay, let's come back up here and let's start working with one of those. Because here's that thing, we're going to pick the battles basically, but when you think about this, and we'll talk about this here in just a second, one of these changes may fix the other issues. Okay, so always kind of say, I'm just going to focus on one issue at a time. Again, that change may take care of other problems. So if I say, you know something, the problem is this character is coming from this country, but if they were in this country, everything would be not a problem. As soon as I fix that, that might fix the conflict, and maybe the setting now does not become an issue. Get the idea? Um, so always do that. My recommendation also is to always start with some external notes. Write those notes down, figure them all out, and then you're in pretty good shape. A lot of my clients have some great editors, and the feedback that they get is that they get these revision notes, but once they get the revision notes, the author can sit down and say, okay, if I make this change, this is going to affect here, then it'll affect here. I don't have to do everything, right? If you just started at the top of that editorial letter and worked your way down, it would be crisis mode. So kind of pick those battles, figure out, is one problem going to take care of some other issues? And that's going to help you out a lot. Again, find your purpose. Make sure that you know what the theme is to your story. You've got to make sure you do that. What is the purpose? Why are you writing this story? What do you want the reader to take away from this story? And all of those changes that you make have to constantly be targeting that single purpose. You can make a change, but if it's not a change that's not going to make the story better, then you don't need to make that change. It's not worth the effort. It's not worth the time, because if you're making a change because you're thinking, I don't like the way this is worded, you make that change. Did that now go against what the theme and the purpose is of your story? Might have made that scene better, but again, how does that affect the big general picture of things? So I want you to always remember that last piece there. And finally, find those solutions. Always ask yourself, if I find the problem, is this something that can be fixed? Because sometimes maybe it's an issue that can't be fixed. Okay? And that's going to go down to this last part right here. If it can't be fixed, just get rid of it and come up with something better. Okay? Deleting things is always a solution. Um, Also, remember that solutions don't mean a massive overhaul. I think a great example of this is one of my clients was working with her editor, and the editor really had this big overall change that they wanted to make with the story, because the hero's backstory just really wasn't quite working well, and we didn't understand his goals and his motivations and the conflict and connecting. She couldn't figure out why. I mean, why wouldn't he want to get together with the girl, right? And the editor was just coming up with all of these massive changes. And as I sat down, we worked with the author. We said, you know something? What about if we did this? What if he is a widower? And it was like, well, wait a minute, that would work. If he was a widower, we just fixed the problem. There's the reason why he didn't want to get married, because he's already had somebody die in the past, right? I don't have to make an extensive storyline. Maybe it was his first love. Call it quits. His first love, they got married too quickly. She died because of the flu. I don't know, whatever. One little paragraph fixed everything. Okay, so I'm somebody who says I want to always look for the easiest approach. I don't want to make work, I don't want to make it harder for my author to have to fix the problems. I don't want to have somebody go, I want to rewrite the story from the base level. That's a lot of work. If I can make those changes really quickly, that's what we're going to shoot for. So again, simple adjustments through maybe simple line changes, maybe to fix the conflict of the motivation of the character might just simply be, instead of adding a whole chapter with a backstory, which is what a lot of people will often do, maybe all I have to do is to add single lines every now and then throughout the book. Just a single line. Wow, he didn't really like doing this. Reminded him too much of work. Okay, great. That line right there, just a couple words, took care of maybe a motivation. Okay, maybe again, adding just a simple paragraph. If I just add a paragraph here, it'll take care of it. So if you're saying, gosh, I don't know much about the heroine's backstory and why she does this, we can add that simple paragraph. As she sat there and looked at Bob, she thought back to that earlier relationship she had. Was she seeing a lot of the same types of things that her ex-husband was doing? He's sitting the same way. These were things she didn't like, right? I take one paragraph, put that in there. I just fixed the problem. So again, you've got to make sure that you're looking for that. And again, finally, deleting the whole thing is always a solution. I don't care if you like the way that the paragraph's written. Sometimes it's best to just simply delete it. So I'm just going to encourage you to do that. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit here. As always, I want you to do me a favor here, and I know I haven't been posting these, but I'm going to try to get back to these. But as always, make sure that you like this video, share this video with some other people. So make sure that you do that. Connect with me. Follow me I'm over on Facebook. I've got things there. I've definitely got the blog over at the blog site. If you're thinking about submitting projects to me, please, please, please make sure that you visit the website, look at the website, read those submission guidelines, know exactly what I'm looking for. And then finally, if you are interested in having me come to your writing chapter, in your writing organization to do some presentations for you, to judge contests, you name it, or do video lessons or whatever that might be, all you have to do is reach out to me. All you have to do is email me, let me know, and say, hey, Scott, listen, we're setting up our conferences, and we'd love to have you come and do some talking to us. We'll do whatever you want. That's what I'm here for. So, looking forward to seeing a little bit more of you sooner. Make sure you connect with me. Say hi to me over on the blog. Follow me on Facebook. Every now and then I'm on Instagram as well, so you can always check in over there. I'm on Twitter sometimes, but you know, like I said, reach out. I'm looking forward to talking to you. Hope you had a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.